Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Talk with Tonsoni. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. Football season is upon us, and the smell of the tailgate is strong. Attending a college football game on your favorite campus is a great way to spend a Saturday. But getting to talk to fellow fans is one of the great benefits of any tailgate Saturday. Tonight, we talk Indiana University with current junior Andrew Brown, or as we affectionately call him in our family, IU Andrew. IU Andrew is a junior majoring in what, Andrew?
Informatics.
Informatics. Didn't put that in my intro, but IU Andrew is a junior majoring in informatics. He's a member of the IU marching band, has been a Cuban Center intern and currently works there, and an all-around Indiana University fan and awesome student. Please welcome IU Andrew Brown to the podcast. Andrew, how are you doing this evening?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
And just a little bit for our listeners, Andrew was from Westview and knew some of our family, our members up there, the Hales family up there, and we've been introduced to him. And since then, my son and Andrew and myself have met at several sporting events, and he stopped by a few of our tailgates, and we've really come to appreciate Andrew. And this podcast is just to talk a little bit about Indiana University, some of the experiences you've had, and a little bit about the Saturday experience for you as a member of the Marching 100. So let's get started. You mentioned your major is informatics. Could you share with us what exactly that means?
That's a pretty common question when people ask me what I'm majoring in. Informatics is really similar to computer science, which most people know. Informatics is more it has to do with how technology is applied, primarily to business, but it can be in other sectors like music, art, biology, medical, stuff like that. But I work a lot with information, databases, analyzing data, stuff like that. So it's not the normal, 9 to 5, you're coding computer programs. I knew that's something that I didn't want to do. And IU has actually offered one of the first informatics degrees in the country. It's a fairly recent field, but I knew that was something I wanted to do compared to like computer science, computer engineering, which are more common, more well-known fields.
So, Andrew, was that part of your decision to come to Indiana University? Was that major, or is that something that you've discovered once you attended a couple years ago?
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. I actually had a friend who's a little bit older who was an informatics major at Trine University up in Angola. So I had kind of talked to him about it, and I also looked at Trine, but IU was definitely my first choice. And it ended up actually being the only school I applied to.
So here we go into some of the fun questions. Where was your freshman dorm?
I actually lived in Eigenman, up on 10th and Union.
And that experience, was it everything you thought it would be as a high school senior?
Yeah, it was a little different. So Eigenman, for those who don't know, is a very tall building. It has lots of floors. And I actually lived on the second to the top floor, which was the 13th floor. So that definitely made fire drills a little bit interesting. But overall, it was a good experience. But I definitely like living off campus better now that I've been off campus, entering my second year off campus.
And where do you call home currently in Bloomington?
I live at Terra Trace Apartments, which is just a little bit south of the football stadium on Dunn Street. Last year I lived in Stadium Crossing, which is, I think more people would know, but it's also on Dunn Street across the street from the stadium. But I really like living close to the stadium. It makes it easier to get onto campus with buses and stuff like that. But also being a member of the Marching 100, and then now working at the Cuban Center, it makes it a lot easier to get to events and things that I'm involved in.
Well, we have a little bit more in common, Andrew, because my oldest son lived where you lived your sophomore year. And I believe this is a long time ago, and I think they've been rebuilt. But I was at Terra Trace a long, long time ago in the 80s. So very familiar. Stadium Crossing was your first apartment right across from the stadium. And back in the day, we had some good get-togethers. Since this is a family show, we had some good get-togethers at Stadium Crossing. It was under a different name back then. So you mentioned the marching band. How long have you played your instrument? What instrument do you play? How long have you played? And was that something that you had planned on doing entering Indiana, or how did that decision come about?
Yeah, so I played the trumpet, and I started playing trumpet back in 6th grade. I played a little bit, maybe a couple months before 6th grade. But my dad actually attended Indiana University, was a music education major, and then was my band director all through grades 6 through 12. And he played trumpet, so that was kind of my my inspiration, I guess, for choosing that instrument and that track. But it was always something that I had been involved in. I'm not the most athletic person, and so that was kind of my way, especially once I got to high school, to kind of contribute to, the athletics atmosphere, especially at my high school basketball games. That's like the community event, and it was an awesome way to kind of be a part of that. So going into college, my dad had been in the Marching 100 for 4 years while he was at IU. So I'd always kind of been aware of it, and had been to games, and definitely knew that was something I wanted to do if I ever came to IU. It was never a decision, like it wasn't a factor in my college decision. But once I came here, that I knew that was one of the first things I wanted to get involved in. So I'll be entering my 3rd year with Marching 100, all playing trumpet.
That's awesome, Andrew. We in the Tonsoni families appreciate the marching band and think that's a huge part of the college atmosphere at football games and the pep bands at others. And we really thank you for making the Saturdays and the games something special. So take us through a typical week as a member of the Marching 100 in your preparation for Saturday.
So the Marching 100 is actually it's an academic class. It's a 2-credit class. They're non-distributed credits, so it doesn't really go in as any specific category, but they are 2 free credits. So it meets during a scheduled class time, which is 4:10 to 5:45. So we meet and rehearse from those times Monday through Friday. The last couple of weeks we've been taking kind of slow since our IU's first football game was on the road. So we had a little bit extra time to prepare. But typically on Monday, we start learning Saturday's halftime show. And usually by Tuesday, we have the entire show on the field, both drill and music. And then it's just cleaning and rehearsing from there on out. Something new that kind of started last year is we started rehearsing Friday. Our Friday rehearsal was actually in the stadium. So that's been really nice. So occasionally we'll have a Friday rehearsal like the day before a game in the stadium, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, game day, it's a day-long event for the Marching 100.
What time do you have to get going in the mornings? I know there's different game times, but a typical Saturday, how early do you have to get up and get ready and report on Saturdays?
So I guess the easiest time to explain would probably be noon. So for noon games, if we don't have the Friday afternoon stadium rehearsal, we'll have a rehearsal Saturday morning. And those rehearsals always start 5 hours before kickoff. So if it's a noon game, our rehearsal time will start at 7. So typically I'll get up at like 5:30, get ready. Now that I'm an upperclassman, have a car on campus, I'll pick up Some of the freshmen who don't have cars go and pick them up at their dorms. So I had to leave early for that. And then we traveled to Marching 100 Hall and get our uniforms, drop off our personal belongings, and then we walk to the stadium for morning rehearsal, and then it's all on the go from there on out.
Where is that hall located, Andrew?
So my first 2 years in 100, Marching 100 Hall was an old church north of the stadium at, I think it was the corner of Fee and like the bypass 45, 46.
Okay.
It was a really small building. It did not suit our needs very well. It was supposed to be temporary, but I believe the 100 had been in that building for probably over 10 years. But thanks to generous donations over the years, we were finally able to build a new permanent home right on the corner of 17th and Woodlawn, right across from the stadium. So we have a gorgeous new facility that we've been using during band camp, and then that will be kind of our home base on game days as well. But the new building is awesome. It has a large rehearsal room. We can actually march a little bit in there, which was nice during band camp. It rained a couple of days, so we got some stuff done inside. We can rehearse inside if it's hot, which that's been a factor already this year. So it's just been an awesome new facility that has been a long time coming, but definitely well deserved.
So what's your favorite experience on a Saturday game day as a member of the Marching 100?
I mean, there are a lot, but I guess my favorite would have to be the run on for pregame. There's nothing better than, you're underneath the stadium. You don't really know exactly what's going on as far as the pregame promotions and festivities and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you're just running full sprint and you burst out of the tunnel underneath the stadium, and there's a crowd full of people there, and they're all cheering, and clapping along to the, Indiana or Indiana. And that is probably the coolest thing that we do in Marching 100. We do a lot of cool things, but nothing beats, running out of that tunnel and just seeing a bunch of IU fans, cheering for you.
That's good. What's your favorite song, or what's your favorite thing to play?
Oh man. That's a hard one. I guess my favorite, it has to be a tie between Slither, which is a fairly new one, but it's kind of become a Marching 100 staple, I guess, over the past few years. And then a more traditional one being Sing, 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 and that's been around since at least the 80s. And that one's always a crowd favorite, and that one's just a blast to play.
I was going to ask you if you guys like Sing, Sing, Sing as much as the fans like watching you guys perform it, because that's one of the favorite things of the Tonsonis over the 25 years we've had tickets, and I've been taking the boys, is to the pregame concert that you guys have there right after the walk. We appreciate that, and we get a little bit of up close attention. So it's good to see that you enjoy that as much as the fans do. And again, for your efforts in the Marching 100, it's just a lot of thanks from an alum and a season ticket holder, because it just adds to the atmosphere. So you're involved in some other things, obviously, as a student. You're a member of the marching band. You had an internship this summer at the Cuban Center. Could you explain a little bit about how that went and what you currently might be doing for the Cuban Center?
Yeah. So starting this summer, beginning of June, I started in as a video intern in the Mark Cuban Center for Sports Media and Technology. And that department is fairly new. It was created during the Assembly Hall renovations a couple of years ago. Of course, the money was donated by Mark Cuban. And that department really, it does a lot of different things. So that's where our photography department is based, video, social media, and then all of the sports information directors are also based there. But then also, I guess, with all those things that probably most fans interact with online, and maybe even a little bit on game day, we also have a VR department, I guess, mainly interns that are a lot of virtual reality games, experiences, things that they can use with recruits, in-home visits, that sort of thing. But what I deal with primarily is video. So if you're online, you follow, and pretty much any IU sports team, any kind of highlight package, interview, something like that. That's the kind of stuff that I'm working with. I think there are 5 or 6 other interns other than me. And then we have 2 full-time employees that also kind of deal with that. So it's definitely a total team effort when it comes to those sorts of things. There are 24 sports at IU, and we try and cover all of them, as much as we can. And so it's definitely been a learning experience. As an IU fan, you see that stuff all the time. You never really know, what goes on behind the scenes. And so it's been, just as an IU fan, it's been awesome to kind of get that behind the scenes experience, but then also, contribute to that, that experience that fans are interacting with online, on game day, that sort of thing.
What kind of thing do you like doing the best in your experience at Cuban Center? Is it an editing procedure, or is it planning, or just filming getting to film the sports and have your work published for fans to see? What is it that you really like the best about your Cuban Center experience?
It's hard to say. Obviously my background is, what I first started doing was filming game action. So that will probably always be kind of my first love when it comes to video. And that's obviously, like you're on location, you're shooting a game, that tends to be the most exciting thing you do. But something I had never done before, that I've, really enjoyed learning about is like studio interviews, how to set up lighting, how to properly light things, stuff like that. And then also some editing stuff that, I hadn't really done. I've learned some new techniques already. And so that's been really awesome. Over the summer, obviously, there's no game action really to film. But already since the school year started, we've had 2 soccer games. And those have both been a blast to do. But it's really awesome to see how, we'll have 5 or 6 different cameras at a soccer game. And then my boss will then put together all of those different angles into a minute-long highlight package. And it's really awesome to kind of see how all those different parts fit together, and then, end up making the final product that you as a fan see online.
Well, again, I'll say thank you from a sports fans in the Tonsoni household and all over Hoosier Nation for doing that. That makes our viewing of social media and those sports programs even more enjoyable. So that's really cool. We're talking with Andrew Brown Jr. at Indiana University, just an all-around Indiana person. That's why we have him on the podcast this evening, talking about his experiences as a student, a member of the marching band, Cuban Center intern. Talk about your fandom of Indiana University. You're quite the sports fan. We see you at baseball games, and like you say, now you're covering other sports for the Cuban Center. Talk about how you've come to really enjoy Indiana University athletics.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, my dad went to IU. So I grew up an IU fan. I grew up watching IU sports. Where I grew up is, 4 hours away from Bloomington. So we really didn't get to make it to many games in person. But just, I remember very vividly on Saturday afternoons in the fall, we'd be out in the yard, during yard work, and my dad would bring our truck around, and we would have Don Fisher on the radio listening to football games on Saturday afternoon. And then in the winter, we'd be coming home from a Westview basketball game, and first thing we do when we get in the car, we turn on Don Fisher on the IU basketball radio call. So it's just always something that has been a part of my life, something that I've always really enjoyed following. Anybody who's known me for any length of time will know that I pretty much wear something IU every day. And I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like I've just been a lifelong IU fan. I love following it. I love the university, and now that I'm actually here, it's that much more awesome just as a fan. But now I'm a student, so it's like I'm much more invested in it, and have a lot more pride for IU.
So, what are your hopes for IU football and IU basketball this year?
As far as IU football goes, I just hope we win. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Tom Allen's been really big this off season on the word finish. And as an IU football fan, I've seen many games where I thought that finally we're going to get over that hump, and then we couldn't just quite finish the game. Couldn't quite close it out. So this year, I'm really hoping we can kind of get over that hump. We can finish a game or two out, against those, big teams, the Big Ten East, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. I think that'd be really awesome. But then, as a part of the Marching 100, my freshman year, we made it to the Foster Farms Bowl. So we got to fly out to San Francisco, and that was just an awesome trip. So I would love to go back to another bowl game, have another trip. It's really awesome in the Marching 100. It's kind of one last hurrah as a group. It's the last thing that we do all together. So those are lifelong memories that I'll always have in many years to come. That San Francisco trip. But I'm hoping that we can get more trips like that. This year and next year. But as far as basketball goes, I'm really optimistic about the outlook of the program with Archie Miller at the helm. I mean, he's an awesome coach. He's been nailing it on the recruiting trail. IU basketball games have always been fun, even when we don't win. But I'm really looking forward to a season where we're going to see a lot of wins at home, and then hopefully make it a deep tournament run. I'm not expecting a national championship. Obviously that'd be great, but I don't want to say it's not realistic, but I wouldn't be like counting on that, I guess, as a fan. I want to make it to the tournament, and I want to make some noise, as a team, and that's something that we really haven't done in several years. So it'd be nice to see that happen again, and have a team to cheer for in March.
I don't think I could have said that any better. I think a lot of Indiana fans feel the same way about football and basketball. We'll have you on again at a baseball tailgate, and we can talk a little more about baseball. And soccer is good. New volleyball coach, new wrestling coach, and you deal with them a lot. But I'm going to end this with just some fun questions. But the first one's probably not going to be fun. I'm going to set you up a little bit. You're from Westview, and you're friends of the Hales. So the first tough question of the night goes, who's better, Grace Hales or Elijah Hales in basketball?
Oh, man, I graduated with Grace, so I got to go with Grace.
I'm so sorry.
Elijah's pretty good, but I got to go with Grace.
All right, so I'm going to send that to the Hales family, this podcast, as soon as I get it done. That's totally unfair, and I owe you a few burgers at a tailgate as soon as you can make it out. But let's end it with a few fun questions. Your favorite place for breakfast in Bloomington?
Oh, man, I don't really eat breakfast that much in Bloomington, but I don't feel qualified to answer the question, but I will say I have heard good things about the Runcible Spoon.
That's a must. Before you graduate, that's a must. It's a little different. Our boys don't like it. It's a maybe I don't know what the politically correct word is, granola or that, but it's one of Amy and I's favorite. Your favorite pizza must go to
Mother Bear.
Pizza. Mother Bears. Well, what do you order?
Yep. Divine Swine deep dish.
You got it. You got it on recall. I love it. Overall restaurant in Bloomington that's your go-to besides Mother Bears?
It had to be a tie between Nick's English Hut and Buffalo's.
You are the man of the hour. Brent and I are huge Buffaloes. I tell you what, Andrew, I owe you a dinner at Buffaloes where we can talk a little bit more about marching band, the Cuban Center, and just overall Indiana. You have been an incredible young person to meet as an educator, a former marching band member myself in high school. Mad respects for what you're doing, and enjoy these next 2 years. They sometimes go by too fast.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
So that'll do it for this edition of Sports Talk with Tonsoni. You can find our work on Twitter at SportsTons. Also, we have a website now where we're publishing some articles, sportstalkwithtonsoni.com. You can find our college basketball work at Delphi Brackets. Please send us your thoughts and about these podcasts or anything that you'd like to see on air or in print. We appreciate you listening. So for Andrew Brown, I'm Brian Tonsoni. So long.